Growing up, my sister was a figure skater. Can't remember if we talked about this before or not, but it was really cool to watch her go from can barely stand up on skates to just a phenomenal athlete who has amazing control of her body in the air and does elegant, beautiful, artistic things. And so this is a big part of my life growing up, was the figure skating world. And my family and I would watch all of the figure skating stuff to see what the elite top athletes were doing. And I remember every time a Winter Olympics would roll around, that was a very big deal for our family. And we would watch all of the routines, the short program and the long program, then the doubles, the pair skate, all of that business. And it's so different than rooting for other sports. When things go right for the Broncos, which is rare, as a football fan, I have trouble staying in my seat, and I'm so excited that the outcome has flipped. And if my opponents screw something up, I'm more than happy to celebrate that. That's great. But in figure skating, it's really hard to root against anybody who's out there doing this on this island by themselves, other than Tanya Harding. And that all went down when we were in this era of loving figure skating as a family. She was easy to root against because of the crowbar to somebody else's knee. But I remember when we'd be watching these routines and they're playing the beautiful music and it's so elegant and lovely. And then Scott Hamilton would be like, this is the most difficult part coming up right here in the entire routine. If she can land this. And she goes into the triple axel and just eats it. And my family, rather than being like, yeah, the one we like the most is going to win, the family instead would be like, oh no. And mom would always touch her face and like almost cover her mouth, like she could just feel the pain as a mom of what somebody else's mom was going through because of all the work and energy and time that went into that. And just one little gazillimeter of skate blade on ice made all of that difference. And there was this lament that would go through our household every time someone failed at figure skating, like all of the judgment, all the competitiveness, all of the, we're rooting for Scott Bowman or whatever his name is and not Yevgeny Plashenko or whatever his name is. Is that a politician? I don't even remember all of these names. All of that just goes out the window and you feel for the person in that moment. Likewise, that is the tone that I think we're getting to at the end of Matthew chapter 23. Jesus' woes have been said. Here's what you guys are getting wrong. I said it in front of everybody. There it is. Jesus pointing of the finger at the religious leaders and the people who are making Jerusalem what it is at that moment and pointing out their guilt for the blood that has been shed, their opposition to the plans of God at every turn, and the opposition that's about to result in Jesus' crucifixion. All of that's been said. But now that it's done, here in verse 37, we get the that empathetic, that's not the outcome I wanted kind of tone that I have been looking forward to talking about with you for some time. It goes like this. Jesus says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often I've longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate, for I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.'" I think this serves as a good moment to step back and look at Jesus' game plan, his interaction with the religious leaders and his enemies, the people who oppose the plan of God throughout. He could have burned them down from the beginning. He could have just absolutely gone to war with them. I suppose he could have summoned supernatural power to humiliate them in front of everybody. The same physical manifestation of God that happened at the baptism in chapter 3, God could have ordained that same type of condemnation would come in force in the moment right at the beginning, that the Pharisees would have just been swept aside. But the text holds it out as though in the providence of God, who's clearly invested in this. We see it at the baptism. We see it at the transfiguration. We're going to see it a third time at the resurrection. In the providence of God, it seemed like a better idea strategically to just let these guys put their behavior, their true selves on display. And they do so, and by the time we get to chapter 23, it looks like everything is more than evident enough in the public record for Jesus to make these remarks and make them with the expectation that people are going to be able to see with their own two eyes. Like, yeah, Jesus is right. This assessment is right. In the providence of God, then, according to the text, it looks as though These guys needed to be allowed to do their thing, say their words, show their crustiness and anger and resistance and stiff-neckedness in response to what God was doing through Jesus in order that people could compare the two systems. Because when all this got started, I'm not sure the audience was sophisticated enough or informed enough yet to be able to really tell the difference between what to them might have just sounded like more vaguely religious language. Like, yeah, the Pharisees say some stuff. It seems like it's about doing nice things for God, behaving well, and going to church and donating probably, and you should pray. Like, that all sounds religious. That's pretty good. Then Jesus, he's talking about praying and donating things, and going to church and being good, I guess, sort of vaguely as well. And if you just let it all mush together without a careful look at Matthew, especially if you let it all mush together without the benefit of 2,000 years of time since all these things went down, which was the circumstances the original audience found themselves in, then maybe these two things wouldn't be as distinct in your perception as they actually are. Maybe we need a little time here to let both of these things breathe so that by the time we get to Jerusalem, Passover week, Passion week, Matthew chapter 23, the stuff we're looking at now, people would be like, dang, these are not the same thing. These are not the same religion. They are not moving in the same direction. They do not have the same idea for how salvation happens or who even the God character is or what a right response looks like or what rightness of heart looks like. These are completely different plans. And these two sets of values are producing completely different outcomes in the lives of the followers of the Pharisees and the Pharisees themselves than they are in the lives of Jesus and the people who are following him. 3 years of this stuff, 3 years of these conversations happening in front of everybody, it was enough for a whole lot of people to see it and to realize what Jesus was saying all along. Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees. There's no life in this, but Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through him. That's recorded in John, not in Matthew. But the whole message of that verse from John comes through crystal clearly in what Matthew writes down as well. So if that's the tack that Jesus have taken with the religious leaders, on the one hand, it means that they're just there to keep doing what they've been doing and to keep being what they've been as a point of contrast to Jesus. But on the other hand, there are a whole bunch of moments where it looks like Jesus is genuinely reasoning with, appealing to, the most pronounced of which comes one page earlier at the end of chapter 22. Jesus did not have to walk over to the Pharisees and the religious leaders after they came at him repeatedly in public to try to plead with them about the nature of the Messiah and what they believed about the key verses that they bandied about regarding the Son of David and the Messiah and how all of that works. But he did. He wanted to gather them to himself. He wanted them to come around. In the Old Testament, God wanted them to come around. He didn't want them to kill his prophets. He was trying to redeem something. And how about that exhaustion that we see from Jesus at times? It's not a rage when the Pharisees come at him. It's not this fury or this anger or, can you believe these guys? No, instead the tone that we get from Jesus is one of truthfulness with his disciples regarding the shortcomings of the Pharisees' model for things, but also the patience that I just referenced a minute ago. So I really do think that what we're getting here is both barrels throughout chapter 23. All right, this is who you are. This is the tradition you're exemplary of, and you're going to prove that by continuing this line of behavior of violence toward the people who God uses for his redemptive plan. You're going to continue that by crucifying his own son, sent just like the master in that parable at the end of chapter 22 sent his son to the vineyard that was being monitored by degenerate tenants. You guys are exactly the same kind of thing. That's exactly what's going to go down. But then there's this gentleness that happens right here that is reminiscent of my mom and my family being sad that the person who we totally did not want to win the figure skating event, but who we still care about because they're a human and they're putting themselves out there in one of those Jean-Luc Picard looking figure skating unitards that are all lumpy and weird in all the wrong places. And they're skating to classical music and and they're jazz handing and they're putting everything they got into it for the whole world to see at the Olympics, and they just ate it teeth first into the hockey boards, and the music's still going and it's all elegant and lovely, but now that's juxtaposed with their weird screwed up face after eating it, and you can see they're crying. And if it's the ladies, oh, here we go, here comes the mascara, they're brokenhearted, they're going to the end and putting on a brave face. But still, even though I wanted the other guy to win, even though I wanted the other girl to win, yeah, my heart kind of breaks for that person in that moment. It's not the outcome I wanted. Again, so likewise, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you kill the prophets and stone those who sent you. How often I've longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. And that's what we got to talk about tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.